Thank you so much for coming today to Find Your Path 2021. My name is Laura Thompson. I'm the marketing manager here at Healthy Pro, where we do menu planning and nutrient analysis software. I'd like to introduce to you Dayle Hayes, author, speaker extraordinaire, and founder of Tips for School Meals That Rock on Facebook. So Dayle, take it away.
Thank you, Laura. I am so delighted to be with you this morning, and welcome to all the attendees for Find Your Path. When Laura first approached me about joining Healthy Pro for this meeting, I thought, yes, a conference that's called Find Your Path is exactly where I would like to be thinking about this summer as we all look towards school year 21-22. I am an inveterate hiker. I love to climb in the mountains of Montana, but I also love to walk the streets of Philadelphia. And basically anywhere I am, how I explore my world is by finding a path. So delighted to join you today to help sort of set the stage for what you're going to learn from many other speakers. I'm going to give you a lot of concrete information. I'm here to sort of set the stage, maybe provide a little inspiration, and help you think about how you can approach finding a path, both for yourself and for all those other folks who you work with in a school nutrition program. If afterwards you'd like to connect with me, I'd like to connect with you. Here are all the places you can find me on social. And I'd particularly like to point out under Facebook, Tips for School Meals That Rock. Laura mentioned that in her introduction, and Tips for School Meals That Rock is a Facebook group with now over 17,000 members. And really everything I know about school nutrition today, I learn on Tips for School Meals That Rock. It is a place for people to share, to ask questions, to look for inspiration. And I was so pleased in a comment that one of our members made was that Tips for School Meals That Rock is what got her through the pandemic. So it is a place where you can get the support you need when finding a path may be a tricky thing. But I'll look forward to connecting with you there or on other social channels. I decided to outline this talk basically on paths, past paths, present paths, and future paths. Because I think all of us right now are, how we're feeling today is informed a great deal about what the past 15 months have been like for us. We're trying to figure out sort of how to maybe relax in the present, but also thinking about the future. So starting out with my past paths. This is my grandson Milo walking along a street in Philadelphia, the street where I lived during 9 months of the pandemic. And I must say that walking along sidewalks and paths and trails with a 3-year-old is something I would highly recommend. They're very focused on what's going on, not worried about what happened in the past, but also not focused too much on what's going to come in the future. They really love to look around, smell the flowers, as we say, and really enjoy themselves in the present. Now, the past 15 months, 15 plus months now, for many of us have been a traumatic time. As Kristen Wiig illustrates here, people worried about their diets, their jobs, how much they spent at Target or Amazon, about school and what was going to happen when the next school year starts. Every headline, their kids' behavior. I mean, this really, although Kristen presents a amusing view of it, this has been a difficult and traumatic time for many people, particularly for school nutrition professionals who in many cases have been working flat out for 15 months. I know some folks have only had a couple of weeks off during that entire time. People are tired. As Piglet says to Pooh, he's tired of all this, and Pooh says, I am too, Piglet, I am too. I think in many cases, people aren't just tired, they're exhausted. And finding a path, like the path that Pooh and Piglet are on here, can sometimes seem almost impossible when we are tired and exhausted, really wrung out in many cases. But as much as it has been a difficult and tiring time, it's been an incredible time for child nutrition. This wonderful graphic comes from my friend Jessica Shelley, the director in Cincinnati Public Schools, and Rachel Irons, who does graphics for her. And I think this really illustrates the fact that things changed dramatically for school nutrition during this pandemic. As it says on the graphic, we've always known we are essential. Now the world knows too. And I think that's one of the most important things for us to really be focused on, is that the pandemic really changed things in terms of how people view child nutrition. An example of that change is the fact that on April 9th, 2020, school nutrition professionals appeared on the cover of Time magazine. That certainly has never happened in the past, and I'm not sure that it's ever going to happen again in the future. But this time issue was looking at heroes of the front lines, and people chose to put on the cover essential workers who many people had never really thought about. But, and I also need to underscore the fact that many of these folks had never seen themselves as essential workers and didn't really sign up to be essential workers. But yet when things shut down, when schools shut down, when restaurants were closed, when even supermarkets were sometimes difficult to get to and were experiencing shortages, school nutrition professionals were there to serve children and to feed those kids who really need it. And I know for some of you that meant you heard about school closings on Friday, the 13th of March, 2020, and by Monday or Tuesday, you were serving meals curbside, not knowing a lot of things, not knowing risks, not knowing what was exactly the right equipment. School nutrition professionals stepped up and did incredible things. Whenever I talk about this time, I really urge people to think about how much they have adapted to already, how resilient they have been. And I really don't want to use the word pivot more than once, because I know that's a very bad word for many people. But you accomplished so much. There was not any specific right way to respond, because the pandemic had never happened before. Every school nutrition professional needs to give themselves credit. Nobody knew exactly what to do, and everybody figured it out day by day by day. So thinking about how resilient you have been in the past can also help us be resilient in the future. One of the things I really like people to think about is, what have been your greatest successes, work, personal, over the past year during COVID-19? It's very easy to talk about how difficult it was. It's very easy to talk about how we had to change, do things differently, how we had to have plan not only ABC, but we also had to have plan DEF and so on throughout the alphabet. What's harder sometimes to think about, but what is more, what's a better path for the future, is to think about your greatest successes. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to suggest a few questions that you can be thinking about, both for yourself, but also for the people who you work with. Many folks are starting to have back to school trainings, getting ready for next year. And I think one of the most positive things that you could possibly do is to sit down as you're trying to find what that path is going to be looking like, and really talk amongst yourselves about your greatest successes. Document those. Many people had shared on Tips for School Meals That Rock and in many other ways with me their incredible successes. This is a small town in the middle of Kansas, and these are the school nutrition heroes in Wamego USD 320. What I love about these wonderful capes is that the mother of the director, mother of Laura Trotter Fales, made these capes for her staff, and they wore them out in the parking lot to showcase how they had been such incredible heroes in their community. I love also this picture from School City of Hammond in Indiana. To me, this looked like the superheroes from one of those films about the Marvel Universe. And what you see them holding in their hands, what they are still serving is lunch. And although they didn't have capes in these cases, although they didn't have superpowers, they fed children day in and day out through the pandemic. That's an incredible success to focus on and to help you find your path to the future. There's another group in Burlington, Vermont, the School Food Project there, led by Doug Davis and Heather Torrey. And one day when they were delivering meal kits in the snow, they took the time to celebrate and just to write on the side of a box that they had already distributed 10,000 meal kits in their small city in Vermont. Now they have, I think, gotten close to 1 million meal kits served, but this was way back in the very beginning of the pandemic. So get together with the folks that you work with and think about those successes. Begin to document those successes. And I'm going to talk more about that and more about the importance of telling your story as we move through the present and future paths. So this is a path in my hometown in Bozeman, Montana. I got back after being in Philadelphia with my grandchildren and son and daughter-in-law, and was walking along the sidewalk one day, and I saw this sign, which it turned out had been posted all over Bozeman, that kindness, patience, and hope are also highly contagious. So how we view things, how we talk about things, what we focus on matters a great deal to finding a path for the future. Right now, I think there's a great deal of pride and exhaustion. These folks in Ohio posted this picture on Tips for School Meals That Rock, and the fact that in this one kitchen, they had served 94,512 meals this year, and how much this team rocks. I think the smiles on their faces show that they're very proud of what they've done, but also you can see that there is exhaustion in some of their faces as well. Many people at this point in time, or just last week, were posting, how many days left did they have to serve meals, how they were counting down to summer break. So that combination of being proud of what you've done, but also being, as Pooh and Piglet agreed, so very tired. One of the things that's really impressed me is the kind of gratitude and recognition that school nutrition folks have received all over the country. Not that every district has been great about recognizing child nutrition, but some certainly have. I wrote a few blogs earlier this year. They're on schoolmealsthatrock.org, where I post blogs. But this was an example of one of the blogs I've posted from Auburn School District in Washington State. And in this school district, they recognized all of the classified employees of the year as the school nutrition professionals. 129 employees were recognized for how they had fed children during the pandemic. Districts all over the country have recognized folks in different ways. And in fact, not just school districts, but entire towns have recognized school nutrition folks. So this was from Massachusetts. where Jackie Morgan, who is the Milton Public Schools nutrition director, was designated as Milton's Town Leader of the Year. Again, she was being recognized for her dedication, love, and passion, and for being an incredible role model. So an entire town recognizing the contributions of child nutrition. Remember those ladies I showed you a few slides back who were in Kansas? They got recognized by their Rotary as the Citizens of the Year. And not just districts, not just towns, but entire states have recognized child nutrition folks for what they did. This is Dondrea, who was a school nutrition director in a very small town in Wyoming. And she was recognized by the governor and his wife and invited to open the prayer breakfast in the Wyoming state capitol. So states, towns, districts, all have been recognizing the incredible contributions that folks just like you made during this incredible time. Now, some people have said, it's come up several times on Tips for School Meals That Rock, is that people were disappointed that they weren't recognized, that their district didn't say, great job, didn't give them an award, that other folks in their community hadn't recognized what a great job they've done. And honestly, I'm going to put that back on you in terms of getting the recognition you deserve, because how are you telling the story of your successes during COVID-19? The people who know the incredible things you've done are your staff, are your colleagues, are your coworkers. If you don't tell people what you've been doing, sometimes they are not noticing, especially when they've been very busy trying to cope with their own jobs. So one of the things I've been saying to people is get out there and tell your story. If you've done incredible things during the pandemic, tell folks. This is a great example from Madison County, Kentucky, where they had t-shirts made, designated themselves as Team Essential, which obviously they were, but also promoting the fact that if you feed them, they will come, showcasing the beautiful meals that they were offering to students during this time. Scott Anderson, the gentleman in the top right, is the director and really told the whole team's story on social media in an incredible way. So be following Madison County, Kentucky School Nutrition. In fact, follow all the folks that I'm talking about here and get an idea about how they told their story and how you can tell your story. A district who I just have to tell you is doing a fabulous job of telling their story and not giving up in any way is Aurora, Colorado, where they designated themselves as the A-Team. And this A-Team even developed a logo for 2021. Can't stop, won't stop feeding our kids. And as you can see on the left, they're advertising Big Bag Friday. That's what they called it when they distributed meals for the weekend at a variety of locations. But the important thing that they did, as you see on the right-hand side here, is that they actually wrote up a document telling their story. So it's about, I think, a 20-page PDF. They just strung together pictures of how they were distributing meals, how families responded to getting those meals, and then some of the data, how many breakfasts, how many lunches. Now, Laura and I have had a conversation about how Healthy Pro would love to help you tell your story. There are lots of people out there who would like to help you tell your story. But if you're disappointed slightly or just know how important marketing is, tell the story about what you did during the pandemic and do that now. Do that now before you forget, before you get into the next year and sort of all of those incredible things that you did, all those lines of cars, lines of students who got meals from you. Before that sort of is hard to remember in detail. Tell your story, get it written down. Back to resilience. I think, I don't know any other group in this entire country who had the resilience of school nutrition professionals. And when I saw this, I thought this perfectly describes what, what has happened. And you've survived every single thing you thought you wouldn't. I'm positive there were many times you woke up in the morning and thought, oh my goodness, how are we going to serve meals curbside in the snow? How are we going to do that in the rain or the heat? And yet you did it. How did you survive all those supply chain disruptions? You did it. And as you look forward, I think it's really important to remember this fact. I know there's some scary and difficult things coming up, but remember that so far you've survived every single thing you thought you wouldn't. So let's talk about finding your path in the future, because that's really what this conference today is about. And Healthy Pro has put together a number of breakout sessions where you get to talk about some of the specific things you're worried about regulations and waivers, about supply chain and procurement. So you get a great opportunity to really think about some of those specifics. By the way, this picture is actually looking out from the front porch of my cabin, and that is in fact where I'm coming to you this morning. I am in the Beartooth Mountains of Montana, which has a lot of wonderful paths that I've been able to spend time on for the past 20 or 30 years. And it is a place that I had the opportunity in some quiet to reflect and think about the future. So I have a few pieces of advice as you're finding your path for the future. They're not profound. In fact, some of them you've heard a million times, but sometimes it's worth saying them one more time because they really do work. The first one is to laugh often. You may have heard that laughter is wonderful therapy, great stress reduction. It turns out there's a lot of research to support that. And personally, when I want to laugh at something in school nutrition, I go to the Facebook page of Lessons from the Lunch Lady. She, Wendy Garman, has an incredible ability to capture the joy, the funny bone of children who come through the lunch line, and then to share that with others. This was something she posted in May, just letting all of us who follow her page know that she is the best lunch lady and that she has jazz hands, which are fabulous in this picture. But these posts always bring a smile to my face, and sometimes when she's quoting kindergartners or third graders, it makes you laugh out loud, or at least makes me laugh out loud. So looking for humor and joy and laughter, especially laughter that you can share about the job of a school nutrition professional. Secondly, is to breathe deeply and then to repeat. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I am most stressed out, most worried about things, I stop breathing. I don't stop breathing, entirely, of course, but my breath becomes more shallow. I'm not paying attention to it. And sometimes I'm actually holding my breath. I know that actually during your meeting today, you're going to have the opportunity to focus a little bit more on your breath. But it is incredibly important to just take a step back sometimes and make sure that you're breathing, because that is a way to focus on what needs focusing. And smell the flowers. My multiple walks with my 3-year-old grandson Milo in the streets of Philadelphia was all about smelling the flowers. And now that I'm back in Montana and I don't have gorgeous window boxes, I have wildflowers. And one of the things I've learned about taking so many pictures of wildflowers is that taking the picture really allows me to stop and focus on the flower. Not just to walk by and say, oh, look at that pretty wild iris, but to really focus on how incredible the colors, the smells. The wonders of nature really provide us the opportunity, again, to step back for a moment and to focus on something like the smell of the flowers. By the way, in finding this picture, I did a search in my phone and found out that I have 1,100 pictures, more than 1,100 pictures of my of flowers in my phone, which makes me think I ought to spend some of my time this summer going back and getting rid of some extra pictures. Last but not least, what I want to suggest is that as you move forward towards the fall, towards whatever awaits us, I know lots of people are worried about, for example, how are they going to staff their programs? Are they going to be able to find enough people to fill the positions they have? What about procurement and supply chain disruptions and everything from equipment to packaging to food? Those are all things that may become a concern, but you know what? Those are also things that I am guessing you will all survive beautifully, because remember, you've survived everything else so far. When the pandemic first started and people were looking for words of wisdom, many folks looked to Mr. Rogers. He has provided words of wisdom he provided words of wisdom for many decades of young children, but also their parents. And he said, of course, famously, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. Now, during the pandemic, you have been the helpers. You have been there for your community. You have been there for families. That's why people have recognized you, not just in your district, but in your whole town or maybe in your whole state. So people have looked to you as helpers, but you also get to look around you and find out who are the people who can help you tell your story. And I suggest that your staff, if you're a director, that the folks who work day in and day out through this pandemic can help you find solutions to some of those issues we just discussed, or help you tell your story. Look to your district. If you know that other folks like the transportation department might also be struggling with how to find folks to fill open positions, maybe that's something you can work on together. Look to your community, certainly. Laura Trotter Fales in Wamego, Kansas, utilized Rotary volunteers during the pandemic to help serve meals or to provide meals curbside. So there may be folks in your community who actually can volunteer to help you do the kinds of things you need to get done. Certainly look to your colleagues. That's what we offer on Tips for School Meals That Rock. That's really the connections that you can make with people who are struggling with the same issues. And last but not least, consider your industry contacts. As I told you, Laura and I have had discussions about how Healthy Pro wants to help you tell your story, especially using some of the data that is available to really focus in on not just how many meals, but how much nutrition you've delivered in your community. So look to your helpers and think for a minute with your staff or a group or your kitchen meeting, however you're getting together as a group, maybe even make a list of who you can look to for help in the school year ahead. Think about what are some of those concerns that you have, and then where are some places that you might find helpers. It has been an incredible year plus. And this also came from Cincinnati Public Schools. It was a graphic which used a quote from Nelson Mandela, that history will judge us by the difference we made in the everyday lives of children. I can absolutely guarantee you that history is going to judge you, the school nutrition professionals of America, very well. The difference that you made in the lives of children during this historic event is incredible. But that story still needs to be told, and it needs to be told as you get back to school, as you're working with your staff and building a team together, as you're building a team in your kitchen. You really do need to focus on what successes you've accomplished, and then look for those folks who can help you do incredible things as we move into the future. So I want to thank Laura for inviting me to think about paths, past, present, and future, and allowing me some time to focus in on what paths on mountains and city streets have meant to me over the past 15 months, and then to have the opportunity to share those with you. So I hope that we connect again on all social media, but especially on Tips for School Meals That Rock. Because what you can do there is connect with the people who understand what you've been through, understand what you're concerned about, and can help crowdsource some ways to find a path that works for you. So thank you very much, Laura. Thank you, Healthy Pro. And all of you, thank you for what you have done and what you will do in the year in front of you.
Dayle, thank you so much for that. I absolutely loved it, and I loved the acknowledgement you gave of all the incredible work that has been done over the last 15 plus months, and for an acknowledgement of the great work that is to come. And I love the part about telling your story. That is just a fantastic concept that I think we can all wrap our brains around a little bit more. So thank you so much for this, Dayle. That was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for attending today, and we will see you soon.